Hey, Music Junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you love music, I'm telling you, you're going to want to subscribe below, be a part of this community so you don't miss out on our daily content. We're always celebrating the best of the rock and roll era, which I believe is the golden era of pop music. And also, FYI, this week on Patreon, we've done a video on the origin of the cassette table that we feature in a lot of our interviews, most of our interviews. You can access that in the link below. You're not going to want to miss it. Now, in the 70s and 80s, not many rock bands could compete with the kings of San Francisco, Journey. I remember the first time that I heard Journey, I was 5 years old, driving in my parents' station wagon, and I heard Jonathan Cain's opening piano chords to Don't Stop Believin', of course, followed by the mind-altering lyrics from the voice of the rock god, Steve Perry.
Just a small town girl, living in a lonely world.
Followed by Neil Sean's Freight Train guitar, and it was over. At that moment, Journey became my favorite band of all time, still one of my favorites, and even almost 50 years later, these guys are still selling out arenas. Every generation that's standing right now has been moved by at least one of their classic rock standards, or you're lying, because they have so many wondrous hits. Some of their greatest songs, I feel like, are underappreciated gems that deserve another listen and really a permanent place in the playlist of our lives. Their 1981 masterpiece, Escape, was full of phenomenal songs, and one in particular that I believe should have been a massive hit, Stone in Love. It was, of course, an album rock staple that epitomized why Journey is still on top and as big now as they were in their heyday. Stone in Love launches with a Neil Sean power chord, joined by the glorious countertenor of Steve Perry, who takes us back to an indelible burning of a summer love. Those lyrics, those crazy nights I do remember in my youth, I do recall those were the best times most of all. The excitement of a young love in the summertime, nothing better. And what a song.
Those crazy nights I do remember in my
You remember you were out of school, it was summer break, looking for that girl, that boy that just sets your heart on fire, invades your very soul. Regardless of what ultimately happened or will happen with the relationship, those were magical memories, and they may still be in some of you watching in your future. The lyrics for Stone in Love were written by Jonathan Cain and Steve Perry with music composed by Neil Sean. Here's what Neil and Jonathan said about the song and about the time that it was recorded in interviews that I conducted with them.
It was always a AOR FM radio single, yeah.
Because that's a song that every time Journey plays it live, everybody goes nuts. It's one of those deep tracks that coulda, shoulda, woulda been a hit.
You know, I put that together with Jonathan, and then later Steve, but, you know, I came up with, you know, I had that part, and then, you know, I think Jonathan actually came with that. And then I had another. And I had it like a classical tune, you know, that I was playing on just a little cassette machine. And he goes, well, why don't we, I said, well, what can we do with that? He said, well, let's put it in that song.
Yeah.
And so, and then I go, well, it's in a different key. And he goes, well, transpose it. So, you know, and we just stuck it together. The best part of Stone in Love, of the recording process for me, was when we got to the ending, the classical chord. You know, what made it for me were the bass lines that I came up with.
Yeah.
That you know, had Ross play. And I totally went into.
Yeah.
You know, so you had like this thing, and then, you know, I had the bass sort of like intertwined with the lead guitar, so they were actually doing a thing together. I love doing that sort of thing with the bass. I'm always thinking bass when I'm playing like lead guitar. like, it makes such a difference of where the bass notes are, that makes what you're playing sound so much better.
Right.
If you have the wrong bass note, it's not going to sound so cool.
The Escape probably came from 6 cassettes, that Neil gave me of different ideas. And he had all these, and I said, take with this bit. I had 2 machines. I had a JVC and a JVC. And I would bounce them over back and forth, because it's the only way you do it.
Right.
So this bit goes into this bit and try this bit. And I would come to rehearsal with, all this stuff. And Steve would go, oh, I get it. And then we'd say, well, let's try this and let's try that. So we were really unafraid. The great thing about Journey, though, was the time we spent creating and rehearsing. Herbie had a beautiful warehouse, and we spent 5 days a week working on our craft. So when we went in to make the Escape album, we made it in 5 weeks for $80,000. We cut all of our basic tracks in like 2.5 days.
Steve Perry and Jonathan Cain brought the ardor of nostalgia, while Sean brought the fire of rock and roll, a lethal fusion that makes Stone in Love such a powerful and nostalgic number.
Can't help but sound I'm falling, Stone in Love.
The foundation for Stone in Love was fortuitously constructed during a party in San Rafael, California. Neil Schon was messing around with one of his guitars and a tape recorder. The day after, as he said in the interview, he listened back to what he had recorded at the party, and he heard a riff that he wanted to shape into a song. Always loved that guitar riff. It's just, it's classic. Very typical of Neil Schon to have an unstructured melody in his head or on a tape. I mean, Neil Schon has an uncanny gift for melody. There's always a potential hit groove playing in his mind.
Neil, from the first time I ever saw him play or sat in a room with him playing, has the word serendipity. The guy he's got the loosest, most fluid hands, and he speaks. He doesn't just, he noodles a lot, but in between his, and then he goes, and he says it really plain and clear, and that gets you, make your fur go up. He's really a soulful player, and really, it's like he's so different than Joe Satriani, so different than Eddie Van Halen, that I don't like comparing them. So I won't compare them. But as far as just being fluid and being able to do things, he can do as much as either one of those guys. And he's just so hard to work with because he's got way too many ideas and he's so unorganized with them. Like he just plays, but it's pure serendipity. He can plug in and play for 3 days, probably without repeating himself and showing you, what about a song like this? Well, it's like so overwhelming for a guy like me who, show me something, get me inspired, and then do it again. Yeah. Man, if Neil, you got to have a recorder going at all times because he ain't going to do it again. He said, what do you mean? Which part? I don't know. Shit, you played it,
Yeah.
So he's wild.
Neil Schon played the melody for Cain and Perry, and they started putting the lyrics together. Steve Perry gives Jonathan much of the credit in many interviews that he's done for writing the lyrics for Stone in Love, complimenting Cain on being a great lyricist, and that the experience of collaborating with Jonathan on songs for Journey made him a better writer. For me, hopefully I've made no secret of the fact that Steve Perry is at the top of my list for the greatest vocalists ever, maybe at the top. Growing up, I always heard people talk about Freddie Mercury and Robert Plant as the greatest of all time, and I agree. But I'm telling you, Steve Perry is toe-to-toe, shoulder-to-shoulder, right there with them, sometimes even past them. Someday soon, I'm going to put together just one show about that. But for now, I'll just say that Steve Perry is a vocal god. His sense of melody as a singer, in my opinion, is unmatched, and is not just his range or his ease of hitting a note that most singers couldn't dream of. To me, it's the threefold attack that he exudes in every song that he brings to life. The 3 parts are soul, power, and range. When he was at his peak, it's a fact. When Steve Perry belts, entire solar systems crumble.
She pulled me down, ooh, like a clover.
I mean, Steve could knock you out without making you tired, and that's difficult to do. What I mean is that a lot of great singers use their prowess and they just show off, and it can wear on you as a listener. Can also come off as a bit pretentious and unfeeling. Steve Perry is the opposite. I mean, he generates so much soulful emotion that he changes us from spectators of this awesome performance that we're seeing to us becoming actors on the stage of his interpretation. We become one with him, or rather one with the song. And that's why these songs are actual checkpoints of our own personal history. Steve Perry knows how to transcend the boundaries of human emotion and become a part of your experience, my experience. He brings the lyrics to life in a way that I don't believe any other singer can. That's my take. Now, seriously, no matter how many times we've heard Don't Stop Believin', and at this point, it's a lot of times, no matter who you are or what continent you happen to live on, when Steve Perry sings the lyrics, don't stop believin', hold on to that feeling, streetlight people, no matter what you're doing, you can't help but participate in this monumental idea of hope. And no matter what mood you're in or what you're going through, you're going to hold on to that feeling of believing. And it's not that different with Stone in Love. Stone in Love means absolutely head over heels in love. And when Steve sings the chorus, it's etched upon your soul forever. Here's another memory that Jonathan Cage shared about the song.
Perry was in love with the song, which I happen to love too. And Steve was just, at his prime at that point. Yeah. He could sing. I mean, he did Mother, Father in one take. That was one take.
On Stone in Love, Steve Perry uses his one-of-a-kind vowel tuning in his narration of an unforgettable blast from the past. His vocals increase in range and intensity as the passion within the story builds to Perry's definitive top-of-the-mountain proclamation of being stone in love. Steve Perry said of the song, and I quote, "Neal Schon came up with the Stone in Love riff, and that riff is just genius. I was born and raised in Hanford, California. I used to go up to the mountains up by Shaver Lake. There were these rivers up there, and I'll never forget seeing this girl. She was wearing a pair of jeans that were cut so short, I guess they would be called hot pants, and they were frayed extremely from her swimming. And she was as lean as a little chicken wing." Again, he was probably saying this in the 80s. Anyway, to continue the quote, "I'm lying there burning in the sun. The water is so cold up there in the summer, it's snow melt. So I'm trying to warm up on the rock. I knew who she was because she was from our town, but she never gave me the time of day. She was a beauty and I was the skinny, big-nosed kid. She was always going for the GQ-looking guy." End of quote. Steve Perry's experience is not unlike our own experiences from those summer nights. Regardless of geography, he captures it perfectly. He also said of the song, and I quote to end up, "Still to this day, it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. And that's where the words 'in the heat with a blue jean girl, burnin' love comes once in a lifetime.' That's where that came from. But it started with Neal Schon. A lot of stuff started with him." End of quote. Now, speaking of Neal Schon, one of the greatest six-stringers in history, and for me, truly the god of melodic rock guitar. The song Zenith belongs to Neal. As one of the best Neal Schon guitar solos in his blazing canon of shredders. Now, Stone in Love was the sixth single released from Journey's diamond-selling album Escape. Of course, a mammoth that, again, has so many classic songs. Kind of plays like a greatest hits album. Stone in Love didn't chart on the Billboard Hot 100, and it just missed the top 10 on the mainstream rock chart, peaking at number 13, which is such a head-scratcher. But since its release in 81, Stone in Love is a fan favorite during Journey's amazing live shows, and that's why it is my pick for one of the greatest hidden gems from the magical decade of the 80s. One of the best from 81. So to Neal Schon, Steve Perry, and Jonathan Cain, and the rest of the players on this magnificent song, we salute you and we honor your undeniable legacy as one of the greatest bands in rock history. Now, as the summer of one of the most trying years of most of our lives is coming to an end, we got to thank him for creating a song that really captures those perfect summer nights of our youth. and kind of gives us hope that there are more of them in our future. So for everyone who will watch this, send this summer off right and give 2020 a punch in the face by listening to this beautiful rock classic below. Seriously, it's the best way to do it. Leave us a comment about Journey and the song. What other Journey songs should we cover on here? Tell the story behind. To get Journey's music on vinyl or other merch from the band, click on our Amazon links below. If you like our content, subscribe below. And if you want more content like this, become a patron to help us curate this great history, help us keep the music alive. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Stay safe.